Welcome into the Alabama Football Report. I am Tom Downey with spring practice, and we'll call it a week away. We're going to have some former Alabama players detail who they think are primed for a breakout season in 2026 for the Crimson Tide. Before we dive into that, we want to beat last month's share high. That was 23 shares. Therefore, we need 24. Help us out by sharing today's video on social media, Twitter, Facebook, whatever. You name it, please and thank you. So 3 buckets of players, not just 3 players who appear to be primed for breakout seasons. We were at the NFL Combine this past week, talked to a bunch of former Alabama players. One of my favorite questions to ask them is essentially, who's next for the Crimson Tide? A name that multiple people brought up was Dijon Lee. Here's what Jeremy Bernard had to say about him.
Man, Dijon Lee, he's a freak athlete, man. He's gonna be a guy that, is not gonna surprise a lot of people, just because, his height, his length, but his athletic ability is crazy, man. He's a fast guy. He's a guy that can, make plays in the air. He uses his length. He has great technique. I wouldn't be surprised if he's a first-round draft pick coming out whenever he does.
Good insight there from Jeremy. I feel like you could maybe say Lee is too obvious a name of yeah, of course he's going to be the next guy up. He kind of essentially earned, if not outright stole, a starting spot down the stretch for the Crimson Tide. He is primed to be part of a really good secondary for the Crimson Tide. That, yeah, they lost Domani Jackson, some various depth pieces, but the big guys are all back. They're all set to have, I think, a pretty pivotal and impactful breakout campaign. I didn't get a clip for it, but I did talk to Domani Jackson as well. Sometimes the audio isn't the greatest, and that was one of them. The audio was just not going to work for us. I asked him, hey, who's going to, have the next big name out of the Alabama secondary? He said, he also mentioned David Brown. It's fair. He said, obviously, Lee. He's just a freshman right now, but he's going to be the next great one. Lee was really impressive last season. Targeted 30 times, 17 catches, did allow 3 TDs, all as a freshman. I think you are looking at a future star. I think Jackson's right. The next great Alabama corner who puts up incredible production and balls out. And I think down line, hopefully, knock on wood, ends up being a first-round pick. Do you think that is the case? Will Lee end up being a first-round pick? Y for yes, N for no. Let me know in the comment section of today's show. We're going to go now to the entire running back room, which I plan on doing some position battle preview stuff before we get too far into spring practice here. The running back room is very much one of them. Jam Miller, who was late to his podium session. We did get it. I think we were the only ones there, if I recall correctly. Shout out Sam Brown for anchoring the questions there. Here's what he said on the backfield.
Daniel Hill, A.K. Deere, and Kevin Riley. Them guys, me being with them, just helping each other, just building a relationship, finding little nitpicks on how they could also get better in their game.
It is going to be a different room for the Crimson Tide this upcoming season. Obviously, Jam Miller off to the NFL. Daniel Hill, A.K. Deere, weren't crazy super involved, but they've got plenty of talent and upside there. Hopefully the revamped offensive line leads to better results as well. I think it was heavily an offensive line issue. I appreciate the Kevin Riley shout. I don't know if Jam Miller is familiar at all with Ezavier Crowell. The timing did not really work out for those two to overlap, period. Not sure if Crowell was there for some of the CFP practice or not. But either way, I think he's got a chance to make an impact as well in what could be a heavy rotation this upcoming season. So who leads Alabama in rushing in the 2026 season? A lot of options. Deere, Hill, Crowell, maybe even Riley. Let me know in the comments section of today's show. I am super intrigued by Daniel Hill. Just a massive mountain of a human being and really impactful short yardage stuff. Can also catch the ball out of the backfield. If he can do a good job in pass protection too, which is going to matter a lot for who's out there on third downs. At his size, he should be good in pass pro. Granted, spoiler alert, high schools don't teach you that because, you're the running back. They're not worried about that. They're trying to get you the ball downhill. I got pretty high expectations for Daniel Hill. Very small sample size against often not the best competition. I do think A.K. Deere's got some really intriguing juice as well. Only 19 carries, 7.4 yards a pop. I think at one point it was a 12 early in the season. And then Kevin Riley, did play as well. 59 carries, 224 yards. The problem is, outside of Deere, and even if you want to include that, you're barely getting to 4 yards a pop overall. Have to be more efficient. You don't have to be the Trent Richardson, Mark Ingram, throwback, Derrick Henry, Eddie Lacy. You don't have to have that level of running game in the modern day outlook for college football. But it does have to be respected by opposing defenses. I don't think the run game was respected last year. Hopefully the new O-line and these young bucks in the backfield can help that end up being the case. Today's show is made possible by PrizePicks. Shoot your shot on PrizePicks and get $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. That's right, PrizePicks is now giving you $50 in lineups when you sign up and play your first $5. PrizePicks makes every dunk, dime, and board that much more exciting. Don't miss this chance to start on America's #1 app for sports picks. That is PrizePicks, one of the college basketball PrizePicks lineups here. Some Goblin more than less than, so easier to get. Colin Chandler more than 10.5 points. Ezavier Lee more than 1.5 three-pointers made. And then I'm on board with producer AP here. We're taking Darren Peterson, a.k.a. DN Peterson, less than 26.5 points, boards, and assists. PrizePicks now has early payouts. You get off to a hot start. You have the option to cash out those winnings before the game even finishes. If you haven't already, go download the PrizePicks app today. Use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Let's go to the wide receiver room here, and the breakouts are hopefully coming. We will take you back once again to what Jeremy Bernard had to say.
We got a couple of young guys, but I think Rico Scott and Lotzeir Brooks, those guys, you guys are going to see those guys got a lot of potential, man. I think they're gonna do really well, especially under the system with Ryan Grubb. He makes sure that he's able to get the ball in the guys' hands that can make plays, and each of those guys can make plays.
Ryan Williams obviously is hopefully having a bounce back campaign. But of those two names mentioned, Rico Scott and Brooks, who will have more yards this upcoming season? RS for Rico Scott, LB for Lotzeir Brooks. Let me know in the comments section of today's show. Brooks only had 32 catches last year, but as the year went along, it looked like he was at times outplaying Ryan Williams. And I mean that as a slight against Williams, who's got to work on the drops, which I guess that part is slight. But that's how good Brooks was playing. I have pretty high expectations for him this upcoming season. I think he can emerge as a really good wide receiver too, maybe more than that as he enters his second year of real playing time. And then Rico Scott was kind of a key element of retention. With the personnel losses, Bernard off to the NFL, Isaiah Horton hopping in the transfer portal. Rico Scott was supposed to do it. And then he ended up coming back and sticking around. And, Noah Rodgers is a chance to end up being a rotation piece in this wide receiver room. It's college football. You can't just play 3. You're going to have to play 4 or 5. That's why maybe there's room for a Derek Meadows, a Cederian Morgan to make an impact. So they brought in all these different 3-stars to round out the room. I think we were getting to after the year, okay, we got 6 receivers on this team, 7 receivers on this team. They had to do more. They've done that. I am hoping you end up seeing a Williams, Brooks, Scott/Rodgers breakout campaign for whoever the new quarterback ends up being for the Crimson Tide, which we will have coverage on for you. Some programming notes here. Spring practice begins next week. We'll have some preview stuff for you on the channel. It's about the worst possible timing because it is also the start of NFL free agency, and that unfortunately takes slight priority on our front. We will still have you covered because it's a long spring practice period. We will have you covered, news, rumors, updates, battles, recruiting stuff, all of that as spring practice gets underway for the Crimson Tide. So make sure you are subscribed. 782. That's how far away we are from 38K. Hit that sub button if you haven't already.